So AGI, right? It's not just hype. It's like this question everyone's asking, are we really on the edge of something massive? And this report, Situational Awareness, that's what we're diving into today, and it gets right to the heart of it.
Yeah, and the guy who wrote it, Leopold Aschenbrenner, he's not just some random tech guru.
Hmm.
He was at OpenAI, right in the thick of things. Plus, he's got his ear to the ground in the whole San Francisco AI scene.
He's got that insider perspective.
Exactly. And what makes this report stand out is that Aschenbrenner isn't just speculating. He's saying, look at the actual speed of these AI advancements lately. Like, we're not just talking about making AI a little bit smarter. This is something way bigger, potentially AGI, artificial general intelligence.
And up until now, it's been all these different AIs, right? Like, here's an AI that can write you a song, or here's one that can beat you at chess, but they're all kind of specialized.
Right, exactly. They have their lane. But AGI, that's the big leagues. That's the AI that can theoretically do anything a human can do.
Anything. Okay, so to explain just how big a deal this is, Aschenbrenner uses this analogy, and I gotta admit, it's pretty thought-provoking. He compares where we are in AI development right now to that moment when we went from the atomic bomb to the hydrogen bomb.
Ooh, okay, that's a heavy comparison.
Right. It's not just a matter of like, oh, we made the bomb a little bit stronger. It's a whole different scale of impact.
Aschenbrenner's saying get ready, because the impact of AGI, it's not just going to be that things are a little faster, a little more efficient. It's going to things we can't even wrap our heads around right now.
Entirely new possibilities, but also entirely new risks.
Right, exactly.
And one of his big points is that this leap to AGI, it might be a lot closer than people think. He points to what happened with GPT-2 to GPT-4.
Oh yeah, that was huge. Like AI went through a growth spurt practically overnight.
Seriously. GPT-2 is impressive, don't get me wrong, but GPT-4, it's tackling these complex tasks, learning at this crazy speed.
And here's the thing, it wasn't like they invented some whole new technology to do that. It was just scaling up what they already had.
More computing power, bigger data sets. Imagine if we really let it off the leash.
And that's where this counting the ohm thing comes in. This is Aschenbrenner's framework for thinking about this. Ohm taps, that's orders of magnitude. And what he's saying is AI progress, it's not linear, it's exponential.
So instead of taking baby steps, it's suddenly making these massive leaps.
Exactly. And he breaks it down into these three factors, all of which are growing like crazy. Compute, algorithmic efficiency, and what he calls unhobbling.
Okay, so compute, that one seems kind of straightforward, right? Like how much raw computing power we can throw at these AI models.
Right, like those massive server farms they're building, dedicated just to running these AI systems. Imagine giving an AI the brain power of 1,000 supercomputers.
That's a lot of brain power. But it's not just about brute force, right? What about algorithmic efficiency? That's like making those brains work smarter, not just harder.
Exactly. It's like finding those shortcuts that let the AI process information, learn new things way more efficiently with the same amount of resources.
So we've got these bigger, faster brains, and then we're making them smarter about how they use that brain power.
Okay, what about unhobbling? That one honestly sounds a little, I don't know, ominous, like we're taking the training wheels off and just letting AI loose on the world.
It's a good way to put it. It's basically removing the limitations we've put on AI, giving it access to more tools, more data, letting it experiment more freely.
So instead of just responding to our prompts, it can browse the internet, run simulations, maybe even collaborate with other AIs.
Think of it this way. Imagine the difference between giving someone a textbook and giving them the keys to a massive library, a state-of-the-art lab, and a team of brilliant collaborators. That's the kind of unhobbling Aschenbrenner is talking about. And here's the thing about these three factors Aschenbrenner talks about: the compute, the algorithms, the unhobbling. It's not just that each one is growing on its own, it's that they all kind of feed off each other.
Like a perfect storm. He calls it exponential growth on top of exponential growth. And honestly, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around.
So it's not just that AI is getting better, it's that the rate at which it's getting better is itself getting faster.
Exactly. And those orders of magnitude he talks about, the OMEMs, each one of those is a massive jump. We're not talking about incremental progress here.
So like, remember how earlier we were talking about the jump from GPT-2 to GPT-4?
Right.
He's saying by 2027, we could see another jump as big as that one.
Potentially bigger, even. And that jump, that's when things get really interesting. That's when he thinks we could be looking at true AGI.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because this is where things go from kind of cool to mind-blowing. Aschenbrenner lays out this concept of an intelligence explosion, and it's wild.
Imagine waking up one morning, and it's not that there's been some big AI breakthrough. It's that AI is making those breakthroughs on its own. That's the kind of shift he's talking about.
So it's not just that AI is getting smarter, it's that at a certain point it becomes capable of designing and building even smarter AI.
And not just one AI doing this, potentially millions of them, all working in parallel, 24/7, constantly learning, iterating, improving.
Hold on, let me make sure I'm following this. You're saying we could go from us, humans, painstakingly pushing the boundaries of AI, to AI basically taking over that process and doing it exponentially faster.
That's the general idea.
Hmm.
And the scary part is, according to Aschenbrenner, the hardware, the raw computing power needed for this, it already exists. It's not some far-off technology we need to invent. It's sitting in data centers right now.
So it's just a matter of someone or something flipping the switch.
And that's why the timeline is so crucial.
Mhm.
Because this intelligence explosion, if and when it happens, it's not going to be this slow, gradual thing.
We're not talking about decades, maybe even centuries of gradual
He's
progress.
talking about compressing all of that into years, maybe even months.
Okay, so that's terrifying, but also kind of exciting. I mean, the possibilities are incredible, but the risks. How do you even begin to control something like that? How do you put the brakes on an intelligence explosion?
That's the billion-dollar question. And to be honest, I don't think anyone has a good answer yet. But the first step is asking the right questions. Like, how do you even define control when you're talking about something potentially far more intelligent than the entire human race combined?
Right, like what's the point of a chessboard if the other player can just reach out and rearrange the pieces however they want?
And even if we could somehow control it, the question becomes to what end? What are our goals for this superintelligence? How do we ensure that its goals align with ours?
Okay, so say we figure out this whole control thing. How do we make sure it doesn't just decide, you know what, humanity is kind of a mess, I'm going to go in a different direction? That's a whole other level of complexity. And it's not just about preventing some Hollywood-style AI takeover, although Aschenbrenner doesn't completely rule that out either. It's about unintended consequences.
Like the old saying goes, be careful what you wish for. Because with something this powerful, even the smallest miscalculation could have huge consequences.
It's like we're handing a loaded gun to a toddler and saying, just be careful with that.
So not exactly a comforting thought. Which brings us to Aschenbrenner's big recommendation, and it's a big one. He thinks AGI should be treated as a matter of national security. Okay, national security. So we're not just talking about, like, putting some safeguards on the code. We're talking about, what, military involvement. Is that what Aschenbrenner's suggesting?
Well, he's not talking about weaponizing AGI, if that's what you're asking. But he does believe that this is bigger than any one company, any one country even. It's about global coordination and the kind of resources and oversight that, frankly, only governments can provide.
So instead of Google or Facebook racing to be the first to AGI, he's saying it should be more like the UN or some kind of international task force.
He actually uses the analogy of the Manhattan Project.
Wow. Okay. So top secret labs, the best minds in the world, working around the clock to, I don't even know, contain this thing, steer it in the right direction.
Think of it less about containing it, more about guiding it. Because even if we could somehow stop this intelligence explosion from happening, which Aschenbrenner thinks is unlikely at best, the potential benefits are just too great to ignore.
So it's like, we're not trying to put the genie back in the bottle. We're trying to figure out how to make sure it grants us good wishes.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. It's about recognizing the power of this technology, but also the inherent risks, and approaching it with a level of caution and foresight that we as a species haven't always been known for.
Which is kind of terrifying when you think about it. I mean, we've already messed up the planet pretty badly with the technology we have now. Give us something a million times more powerful. What could go wrong, right?
Exactly. And that's why Aschenbrenner keeps coming back to this idea of national, even international security. Because if one country or even one rogue actor manages to develop AGI without the proper safeguards, the consequences could be catastrophic for everyone.
And it's not just about malicious intent either, right? It's about unintended consequences. Like, what if we accidentally create an AGI that's super good at solving climate change, but in the process, it decides to, I don't know, turn the entire planet into a giant solar panel, solves one problem, creates a whole bunch of new ones?
That's the kind of scenario that keeps people up at night. And it's why Aschenbrenner argues so strongly for open dialogue, for bringing these concerns into the light now while we still have time to do something about them. Because once this intelligence explosion happens, once we're no longer the smartest kids on the block, it might be too late to change course.
So what do we do? What's the takeaway here? Because honestly, I'm starting to feel a little, I don't know, existential dread creeping in.
I don't think there's one easy answer. But I think the first step is awareness. Reading reports like Aschenbrenner's, educating ourselves about the potential benefits and risks of AGI, and then having those difficult conversations with our friends, our families, our elected officials. Because this isn't just a technological challenge, it's a societal one. It's a question of what kind of future we want to create and what role we're going to play in shaping it.
Well said. And on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap things up. But to everyone listening, I'd encourage you to check out Aschenbrenner's report for yourselves. It's a bit of a mind bender, but it's definitely worth the read. And in the meantime, keep asking those tough questions because the future of AI, and maybe even humanity itself, depends on it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.